We're here. We're here for another stunt guitar with Rob Kraft, and today we're going to actually be talking about legato picking, or legato playing, I should say. Right? It's not a picking, not as much of a picking technique as it is a left-hand technique. So with that, let's go ahead, Rob. Take it off.
All right, cool. Yeah, so legato is basically, legato means smooth or, connected normally. Like if you're a violin player or trumpet player or something and you're like, you see like a slur over like a group of notes, it basically just means to play it as smoothly as possible. Sometimes that means like if you're a wind player, like you wouldn't tongue. So like if you're playing trumpet, you would just move the valves and then manipulate your embouchure or your lips to get it to go to those notes smoothly. On guitar, the way that we make legato or slurs is primarily with hammer-ons and pull-offs, although technically there are slides as well, which we're not going to be covering today. So legato playing, especially in like the shred kind of guitar world of things, which we're going to get to kind of later on. First, we're going to start with like a more classic rock kind of approach, especially for beginner to intermediate guitar players. Kind of pushing you to the deep end might be a little bit too much, too fast. But basically, bare minimum of picking, and we're going to execute any notes that are on the same string with hammer-ons and pull-offs to make it sound as smooth as possible. In the kind of classic rock world of things, so think like Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin, Eric Clapton, all those kind of players. Usually a hammer-on or a pull-off is like part of a device to basically make them be able to play a lick quicker. And a large part of like learning how to play classic rock licks is basically unlocking that little trick. So you have to pair it with some picking. And if you look in the notation, I do have the picking written in for these for the first one. This first one that we're going to, does that make sense so far? Was that a cohesive explanation, Jared?
Yes, it was great. Did you send over the? Oh, now I got the tab. Okay, I'll get the tab set up over here so I can put it in. But you can get started, and I'll make sure to put the link into the chat. Just give me a second, y'all. But you can keep going.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So for the first one, we're going to be taking a look at this sort of pentatonic groups of three. We're going to be grouping it 3 notes per beat, or as eighth note triplets, which is kind of the most obvious way of grouping this to start. A more sort of hip and interesting thing would be to try to group it in a different number per beat. In other words, if you've got groups of 3 as your pattern, try to group it as 4 notes per beat. And that's a little bit more advanced, and we won't worry about that for today. But, groups of 3 to start. This is like the lick that Jimmy Page plays in the end of Good Times, Bad Times, and it's just one of those, like, really cool, aggressive, classic rock kind of licks. So I'll play it once a little bit slower, and then we'll kind of play it a little bit quicker. So it's going to look something like this. Actually, we forgot to ask, can you hear my guitar? I'm probably a little quiet, maybe?
Yes, a little quiet, but you can hear it all.
Okay. I can crank it up a little bit more. That might be a little too loud. Sorry. All right. So there is still some picking in this, and one of the cool things about a lick like this is you're going to get the sort of smoothness of the hammer-ons and the pull-offs, and then the aggression or sort of the kind of jagged edge of the pick, and they kind of contrast each other in a really cool way. Legato is going to sound smooth and kind of slippery, and anything that is picked is going to, in general, sound kind of, jagged and more aggressive. So like I said, this is basically the pattern, more or less, that Jimmy Page plays in the end of Good times, bad times. He doesn't take it all the way down the neck, but just the first thing to do when you're learning to explore any scale is to learn a sequence and learn to play it all the way through a position, all the way down and then all the way back up. Obviously, if you're taking a solo, you're not going to want to do a sequence like that because that's going to sound really boring to the listener. But first, you have to kind of master everything in a position, and then you can start to learn to be a little more selective with it. This is also like the first lick that I learned that I managed to get going on when I was a kid that I could like actually impress my friends with. And then every solo just turned into like this lick over and over again. But, that's just when you're 16, 17, whatever, you're just getting started. I started playing guitar kind of late.
So I shared the link in the chat now, but here, let me just show everybody on the shared screen. Just the first one we're looking at right here is this classic rock pentatonic groups of 3, right? So going down through your pentatonic scale. But you could pull up that in the chat, and it'll also, you know what? I can put that link. I'll make sure to put that link in Facebook and YouTube when we put those up too. Okay. Stop share. Back to you, Rob.
Awesome. And we're just pentatonic number 1. I forgot to mention that. The first box, the one that everybody kind of knows. Just in the key of A, so 5/8, 5/7, 5/7, 5/7, 5/8, 5/8. Box number 1 is great because there's no shifting or sliding or weird fingers that you have to figure out. So that's why I put it there, just to give you, the easiest kind of thing to get started with. Right. What I would recommend actually when you learn this is don't even worry about the pull-offs. First, just pick all the notes and play nice and slow. And what you want to try to do is keep track of its groups of 3. So you want to think down 3 notes, up 1, and then back down 3 notes. So 1, 2, 3, back up a note, which is down the neck, but across a string. Sometimes guitar is confusing. And then it starts over again right there. And then once you get there's like patterns in patterns with this kind of thing. So go nice and slow. Try to count to 3 as much as you can. Once you feel comfortable with that, then start to add the pull-offs. So the picking that I'm doing is I'm going down and then down, up, down, 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 up, down as I'm going down. So down, down, up, down, 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 up, down, down. Oops. So that's the first one. It's classic rock 101. It's aggressive. It's cool. It's Led Zeppelin, like kind of to a T. Pentatonic scale is all you need to play a cool solo. Cool to move on to the next one.
Yeah, I think so. Oh, if anybody does have any questions, there's the Q&A or the chat. Either one is fine. In webinar mode, they give us both. So feel free to pop in and comment if you feel the need. I think moving on would be great.
Sweet, awesome. So number 2 is a ascending group of 3. It's a subtly different pattern than the one that we did on the way down. I like this one because it flows easy. Like if you try to take the first one we did and play ascending, it's a little more complicated and it's a little harder. Sometimes, just choosing something that works well with your instrument is, not necessarily cheating, but just, being plugged into what you're doing. So it's like a real subtly different group of 3. It's still groups of 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But instead of kind of descending directly down, we're kind of like hopping back and forth between a pair of notes. So it looks like this. And we're just kind of breaking the pattern at the very end just for the sake of ending the thing. So it looks like this a little quicker. Ooh.
Nice. Actually, there's a riff in Bob Marley's song, the "Waiting in Vain," that has a very similar. So I think it's actually it's in the fifth position of pentatonic, but it's like that exact same thing. So
That's so funny. Nice.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
So it goes across genres, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
For sure. Right on.
So for this one, like I said, take it slow. You want to try to count and keep track of your, your groups of notes, so you understand why you're going where you're going. So we're going back and forth, 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And that's where we're breaking the pattern at the very end. Just to end the thing in a way that at least kind of is slightly musical, at least the littlest bit of a way. So again, you're not gonna want to just rip through a sequence. Sequences work best in a specific spot in a solo. They need to work in a way where usually they're going to help build some excitement. So learning where to put them, especially if you're improvising and trying to play a solo off the cuff, that takes a while to get good at that. So just try to be patient with it. The picking. What I'm going to do is, I forgot to write it in the tab, but it's going to be a down, and then an up, down, up, and then a down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, then up, down. So I'll actually add it in my chart, and then that way I can send the updated version real quick. I just forgot to put it in there. Up, down, up. Yeah, so down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. And it's also kind of cool here to experiment with a bit of a palm mute. It's easy when you're playing a solo to get like hung up on just like playing single note licks over and over again. You're just playing like one note at a time, and you forget about other, articulation. So adding a little bit of palm mute, especially maybe in the beginning, especially on those like the pick notes, because then you can really exaggerate that contrast between how smooth the hammer-ons and pull-offs are going to sound versus now this really aggressive, jagged palm muted alternate pick thing. So just kind of have fun with it. There we go.
Nice.
So, fun, old school, kind of classic rock stuff is fun, and it's awesome.
Yeah, I think that, and definitely those picking patterns are really important, because to build speed, it's all about the efficiency of how fast you can pick through stuff, right? So
exactly.
That's the reason why we guitar teachers get nitpicky.
Oh, there you go.
Hey, nitpicky with our picking styles is picking stuff is like, when you go slow, yes, you can get away with some stuff when you're going slow, but as you build speed, you cannot. Right? You need to be very efficient about it. I always say, like, it's like walking. You don't walk twice right foot.
Yeah.
Ever, right? It's the most efficient way to walk is right, left, right, left, right, left. And if you skip that, you're gonna either trip and fall, or it's just weird. So you want to think of it as right, left of walking becomes up, down in picking.
Yeah, definitely. And especially with something like this, because the faster you can play it, like the cooler it is, the more it's going to impress your friends, and the more it's going to build excitement in a solo, especially if you put that sequence in a spot that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then you've got to be hyper efficient. You've got to really be plugged in on what's going on with your picking hand. So it might take a while, where you can get that control and kind of picking awareness, knowing what your pick is up to. And I remember, like, when I would practice this kind of stuff, especially as a kid early on, if you miss a string, like let's say you're going for the third string and it needs to be an up pick, and then you whiff on it, and then you try to restart it, and then you start playing that with a down, you're going to end up chasing your tail, because then when you start over again, you've now practiced it technically incorrectly, and then it'll feel weird, and you could be confused. You know, like, well, I just practiced that part. Why can't I nail it? So a large part of that is awareness of what your body is up to and really understanding why something is going wrong. Remember that getting frustrated is the worst thing that you can do in that moment. If you start getting frustrated, you know, put the guitar down, go chill out, and then come back to it, because frustration will not help.
Ever,
you know,
ever, I know.
Not at all.
And young musicians get frustrated a lot. I mean,
old musicians get frustrated.
Yeah, that's very true. But when I remember when I was first learning how to play the drums, how many drumsticks got tossed across the room, like while I was trying to learn things, and but it didn't help. It didn't, and then it just took a couple seconds for me to go pick up my drumstick to come back and. But also, what Rob was saying, like about where to put these into the solos, like that's another, like your phrasing of how to do this. For instance, in that "Waiting in Vain," the Bob Marley solo, he pretty much saves it right for the end of the solo when it's coming back to another verse. So like he's very melodic and has a lot of space in his solo, all the way leading up to the end, when he just. Flurry of notes, and like while he's finishing the solo, Bob Marley's coming back in with like I said, so he's like leading right back into what Bob's doing. So it's a great production. That song is a beautiful song. So. It's not just shred picking. You can use this. You can use this in a very melodic context too.
Yeah, think of it like, you know, it's like the fireworks of your solo, or it's like the icing on the cake. You know, you don't want to just be eating a brick of icing. That's going to be gross. So you don't want that, at least for the most part. There's always an exception to the rule. Like one of my students happens to be working on the Kirk Hammett solo from One by Metallica. And like in that case, there's not much melodic. It's time to just, you know, rip people's heads off and play. You know, so like there is a time and place for just chopsy stuff the whole time. You know? But for the most part, 95% of solos aren't going to be like that. You're going to want space, and you're going to want to be melodic, and you're going to want to try to be tasteful.
Because it's the contrast.
Exactly, yeah.
It's the contrast. It feels nice to, if you're just smooth jazz all the time, it can also be very like, oh, what's good? Come on, somebody do something.
yeah, definitely. Also, too, with this kind of classic rock thing, I remember when I was in college, we would have these like Styles Labs classes, and there'd be like, you know, 25 guitar players in a room, and like I remember that was like really intimidating at first, obviously, because now everybody's going to sit down and try to play the same lick, and you're all going to see like who can do what quickest.
Right.
And usually, I was actually kind of like towards the back of the pack with a lot of things, you know, which is okay. You know, it just was where I was. And I discovered with a lot of licks like this that we would be working on, my hand didn't have like the snap or sort of aggression that it needed. So I tend to think of this almost like judo for your hand. So you need to like learn how to not fight your body and like your movement. Like that's what judo is as a martial art, is like you're trying to use someone else's body weight, or like wrestling, like Jared, you were wrestling. Like that's all about using someone else's momentum, body weight, gravity to your advantage.
Right.
You know, and that's what your picking hand has to start to do. You've got to like not fight yourself, and it's really hard to get that going on. So just be patient. Again, at the end of the day, it's patience and time, and understand it's not like a video game. You're not just going to level up because you've been working on something for a week or two. You know, it happens when you know when you've had enough time to do it.
Oh, that's funny. I just read something about video games. Is like the problem with like learning life skills from video games is that like you're supposed to win in a video game. Like it's designed to take you from level 1 to level 2 to level 3, and if you just follow the rules, it goes how it's supposed to go. And like That's not life.
Not at all.
That's not life. You do what you're supposed to do. It doesn't necessarily always work out,
Yeah.
but that's okay because and like Rob was saying, patience with yourself. Rob's been playing guitar for 20 something years, right? It's taken him a long time, and even still, every one of these stunt guitar things we've done, Rob's had flubs, right?
I mean, I've had flubs in the easy stuff that we were just doing. We're about
Yeah,
to
right. So like we still make flubs. It's a never ending process of getting tighter, getting more accurate, getting better, right? A lot of the times when you see YouTube videos and everybody or music videos or anything, those are heavily edited. They only give you the good stuff. We're doing it live so that you see that we're real and this is human. We're humans, so.
Well, yeah, and, you know, in the same way, especially like, I mean, there's plenty of Instagram guitar players who just like blow my mind, who are incredible.
Yeah.
But also remember that, like, in the same way that, like, you know, like your ex-girlfriend's like curated life on everything looks great, everything's curated on the internet, you know, like we're all of us are posting, you know, our best take that we got. You know, they don't tell you it took, you know, an hour to get that killer take that we just posted, which makes it seem effortless, you know.
Right.
So, you know, try to keep that kind of, you know, and there are some people like the guy we're about to talk about, named Rick Graham, who just is that good, and I kind of hate him. But, so that's a good segue. So this one is this is a Rick Graham sequence from a hybrid picking thing that I bought and that I worked on. We're not going to talk about what hybrid picking is today. We might do that next week. This is more, you know, kind of shred guitar territory, you know, what legato really means, like, to me, if you say legato, not so much the pentatonic stuff we were just working on. This is a regular old G major scale. It's grouped as 3 notes per string, like every shred guitar player does, which is going to look like this. So 3 note per string is awesome because it's giving us the same amount of notes on each string, so it makes it a little easier to kind of group and manage. 3 note per string is not good if you're trying to like sight read music, because you're going to end up out of position and then you're not going to be able to play those notes. That's where, like, you know, like a jazz musician would play it like this. Because I can play a major scale. You know, so just keep that in mind. This is like a new different system of kind of grouping the notes, and it has a bigger stretch in there. So we're doing a major third, which is going to be from your 3rd fret all the way to your 7th, which might be very uncomfortable at first. You're going to want to use primarily your index finger, your middle finger, and your pinky for all of those stretches. When I get to the last group of 6 notes, that's where we're gonna have that shift, which puts us out of position, and we're gonna use our pointer finger, ring finger, and pinky to play them. So it's 3 5 7 3 5 7 4 5 7 4 5 7 5 7 8 5 7 8. And this sequence is nice and simple. We're 6 tuplets group, which is 6 notes per beat. And it's going to look like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then it starts over. And played faster.
Hey.
So that's legato to me. That's like, you know, so Rick Graham is an incredible guitar player to check out. Also, you know, kind of the master of legato is really Allan Holdsworth. He's unfortunately passed away and deceased now, but I mean, Holdsworth is just otherworldly. I can't even wrap my brain around it, because Holdsworth is like doing this, but with like jazz changes and all sorts of craziness. John Petrucci from Dream Theater does a lot of this legato stuff, which is super cool too. And the another guy who I highly recommend checking out is Tom Quayle, and he's probably the closest, I think, to like being on Holdsworthian kind of level with it. Joe Satriani, this is kind of like in the style of Satch as well. You know, he does a lot of it too. Steve Vai, I mean, everybody does it. My kind of current favorite players would be Rick Graham's awesome, and then, you know, especially Tom Quayle stuff. So, you know, it's groups of 6 on the way up. You know, that's kind of part 1, and then part 2 of this is just groups of 6 on the way back down. So for this one, you know, again, go slow. Try to just jump in and play it as quick as I was playing. You know, I took a little time this morning to warm up, to try to not play terribly today, you know. So I've already been playing for like around an hour or so today. So, you know, remember that you need to get warmed up with something like this. This is like something like sprinter would do, you know, and a sprinter is going to, you know, jog around the track, you know, for a little bit. They're going to get stretched up. You don't want to just jump in. You're going to, you know, tear a hammy. So, you know, on the way down, again, it's the same pattern, you know, but just going backwards. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then starting over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Hey.
So that's like, now we're shred guitar. That's like,
yeah. Hey,
that's it.
That was something. That was something, Robbie.
And also too, I should have. There's a Dream Theater solo off of Awake, their second album, and I'm trying to remember the name of it, but he has like a really long extended run. I'm on a 7-string guitar. Everything that we've done today has been on like for a 6-string, so I haven't been playing it, but he like starts on his 7-string and runs all the way up the neck in this like really cool way. It's like the opening lick of his solo, and, you know, again, this is going to help build energy and excitement. Think of it as like a musical device, you know, and then from there he breaks off and plays some more melodic stuff. So, you know, for me, I you know, trying to use it as like that fireworks, or that, you know, a good way to open a solo, a good way to close the solo, a good way to connect from one melodic idea to another. You know, those are all like, you know, artistic musical devices where sequences like this, you know, work great.
Great.
I feel like, you know, with the picking here, I've wrote it in, you know, there's different ways you can play it. I was playing it with the hybrid picking thing, which I think we might actually tackle next week. That might be kind of cool. So hybrid picking is when you use your pick and then one of your other fingers to pluck a string, which basically means that your picking hand doesn't have to move around as much. It just kind of can hang out, and then every once in a while when you need it, your other finger just jumps out and grabs that string. But for this, you can do it with just pick the whole time. Like John Petrucci, he like in videos I've seen, he does most of it, you know, with his pick the whole time. So, you know, down, up, down, down. Down, up, down, down. And that's like a good idea too. You can just hang out in one spot, you know, especially if the beginning is too hard, if that stretch is too big, you know, maybe start with like the ones on strings 4 and 3, because you're not as stretched out. Also, those strings are a little easier to play on. The high strings can be a little trickier just because they're thinner. There's not as much mass, so your technique has to be a little bit better. The easiest ones are usually kind of those ones in the middle, actually. So there I'm doing the hybrid picking thing. So my hand just doesn't have to hop around much. You know, the pick, you know, there's nothing wrong with picking and doing it that way, but your hand has to hop around more and do a little more work. It is going to sound a little more aggressive. The hybrid picking is going to sound a little smoother. So we might do that next week. That might be really cool.
That's cool. Yeah, I like that idea. I don't know. I've like never done any really hybrid picking, so I'd be interested in that for sure.
Well, it's like normally when I think hybrid picking too, it's like it's traditionally like a country technique. You know, it's like chicken picking, you know, all
chicken
that kind
picking.
of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, all the hot like Nashville country pickers out there, you know, and, like that stuff is crazy cool. Like I hate Brad Paisley's music. Like his songs are bad. Like, man,
this is our second webinar where we bash Brad Paisley. Brad Paisley's
song "Water" and try to tell me that guy can write like lyrics because he can't.
But his telly playing is like no one can touch him. Like really, he's I agree with you completely in that one, but
well, you know, and it's funny.
We're gonna get a letter from Brad Paisley's publicist.
Cease and desist. Stop.
Yeah. Your Zoom at noon bashing of Brad Paisley needs to come to a close.
I guess, like, you know, in full disclosure, it's like the melodies and the songwriting is fine. Like, it's cleverly written songs. Just those lyrics are trash. Like, I'm sorry.
Get a little mud in the tires, something like that, right?
So bad. It's not even PG, so I won't even say like the song "Water" is just bad. Anyway, moving on. So I feel like we got one more legato lick to get, or is that cool? Like move on?
Yeah, I think so. You did both the ascending and the descending.
Yes.
Yep, cool. Yep, just making sure. I was kind of popping around and seeing on getting links for everybody, but everybody's good. Jude, you figured out the chat already, but there's also a Q&A section. But, I mean, there's only a couple of us in here, so let's just stick with chat. If you got any questions or anything.
To me.
All right, let's hop in the last one.
All right, so this one is my own thing that I wrote. This is on a unreleased song. I haven't put it out yet because I've got a log jam on drums, but at any rate, it's fully recorded and everything, so it will be out exactly as it is here. This one is going to use like a little bit of tapping at the end, but otherwise it is mostly just legato the whole time. We're in basically G major. It does switch to kind of E harmonic minor at the end, but it doesn't matter. And I will try to not make a mess of it, which I'm sure I will. Yeah, a little bit of a mess. That was a little bit better. And I'll play it slow. So this little guy is coming from, it's kind of the end of the intro section of the song. So it's supposed to be, like the fireworks. It's supposed to be, like an explosion of notes wrapping up a section as it goes from one part into the kind of middle section. And like the whole sort of pacing of the song slows down. And with this one, we're just trying to group a little bit more complicated groups of groups of six. John Petrucci, like he has this video called Rock Discipline that was like the Bible for me when I was like a senior in high school. And he talks about this concept of scale fragments. And basically a scale fragment, you can just think of it as groups of, okay, so if you're playing six tuplets, just start grouping notes in groups of six and see what different basically permutations you can come up with. And then that's a way to help make it more manageable when you're trying to improvise a really fast run like this. Because obviously, ultimately, that's where we want to all get with this, where you can just free form think up this stuff, and that's what like Tom Quayle and Allan Holdsworth and all those kind of players are so good at doing. So basically grouping it in your brain like that, it's like if we take, right now I'm starting on the third string, we just take those three notes, you could go like, you could play them twice. That would be 6 notes. That would be like an ascending fragment, or descending twice, and that would be like a descending fragment, or like that one where I start on the middle note, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or this one, and that's the one that I'm actually using in the lick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, a bit of this is also kind of designed, because which pattern you pick, you're going to be ending on a certain finger, and that's going to like open up your ability to move one way or another on the neck. And if you're thinking you want to go one way and you pick a pattern that doesn't end right, you're not going to be able to go there, and then it's not going to work. So, getting more and more in tune with that is challenging, especially if you're gonna improvise and just play an idea like this off the cuff. But at any rate, the first one is a group of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then the second one is a little bit harder, because you'll notice that like the note on the 4th string is the first note of the 6-tuplet, and then we've got 5 notes on one string that are ending that. And that's really easy to start to kind of stretch and warp and not be able to hear, or it might be hard to hear and practice it as those even groups of 6. So, trying to count basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's going to be really important. Playing it that slow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's really important, so that when you go to speed it up, you don't start to stretch it and warp it. And that's like, something everybody fights and battles with. So for the picking on the first part, I'm starting with a down, because I always start with a down. And then I'm doing a small sweep as I go from I forgot to write it in, I'm adding it, so I'll send an updated tab out at the end. But so I'm doing just a teeny little sweep as I go from the 4th string to the 5th. There's different ways you could do something like that. This is now starting getting into the territory of economy picking, which is like using alternate picking and then little sweeps to make string changes easier. And Frank Gambale is like the king of that kind of thing. The cool thing about guitars, there's so many different ways you can play stuff, but it can become a little overwhelming. So that's that first group of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I'm just sort of shifting up the neck. And there's another slightly different sequence. This one is actually another Rick Graham one. Or at least I got the initial idea from Rick Graham. So, again, trying to count groups of 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now the last note that I'm playing, if you notice in the tab, it has a T with a circle around it. That's Guitar Pro's, because that's the software that I'm using, way of indicating a tap with your left hand, not a tap with your right hand. It's a hammer on out of nowhere. And if you've got enough distortion and compression, all that kind of good stuff on your guitar, once you get good at that, you don't even have to pick notes sometimes. It'll just pop out. And then those groups are kind of the simplest groups of 6, because I'm just playing 6 notes in a row, then going back and starting one note away from where I began, and another 6 notes in a row. So, all we've done is basically connect different scale fragments in different places, in different ways, to create this run. And then we've got, so that's basically all the legato stuff in this little part, and then from there it just goes into tapping. And then the end part. So I've been kind of experimenting more and more with really, really wide intervals that you can get with tapping. That's one of the things that makes tapping so cool. So I'm tapping on my 24th fret and then all the way, and then kind of like doing a pull off back to 12. So you're getting this like B note super high and then all the way down an octave to B. And then just continuing with that idea. And then you just have to change your hand, your fingers down here to keep them in key. So it's like 12 to 8, 12 to 9, 12 to 9, 12 to 10. And these are 6 tuplets too. So again, just try to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the guitar I'm actually used to playing this on has straight frets, not these weird so I've been a little tricky today, but whatever. Yeah.
That's cool.
And then we're ending. Thanks, man. This is like I don't know, just every metal guitar player does this anymore. It's like just a thing that everyone started doing, and I just copied it. But basically you play notes that are close to each other and play them at the same time. And they sound really dissonant, but it's kind of cool. So in this case, this is where it's harmonic minor. I'm playing a D sharp note and an E at the same time, basically sliding to that D sharp, and then I'm going to tap an A all the way above it. So it's basically outlining like that D sharp. Like diminished 7. And in the end, as I miss it, of course. And then same idea over here, playing 2 notes that are very dissonant. And like that's another thing to try to keep in mind when you're playing a solo. I remember like when I first started playing guitar, it was like this question of like, when you play a solo, do you just play one note at a time or can you play multiple? And like you can play multiple and you'll want to because it's going to make your guitar sound huge. The classic one is like something like that. Like, every AC/DC song has something like that in there, or like a Led Zeppelin song. That's like a really cool one. The Jimi Hendrix kind of screaming unison. That one's really cool as well. I almost think of these intervals in this little thing as like the gent one version,
yeah. And all the Chuck Berry double stops too.
Yeah.
He was kind of, I guess, one of the first guitar players that popularized a lot of the double stops, which you hear in Johnny B. Good and every other Chuck Berry song that sounds exactly like Johnny B. Good.
Hey, I mean, if it's not broke, don't.
No, exactly. Well, that was the time when you just like found your style and you just like cranked out tracks that were just the exact same song. It was Everybody in the 50s was doing that.
But to be honest, I mean that's what everyone does, though. I mean, tell me the difference between TNT and then Dirty Deeds. Or is that Dirty? There's 2 AC/DC songs that are like blatantly the exact same song.
Yeah. You're exactly. Yeah, you're totally right. I guess that's why I haven't been that prolific as a songwriter, is because I always try and make them all sound different, and that's that. No one can ever get used to what I'm going to write.
Yeah, I mean, but trying to keep varying things and trying to make them sound as different as possible is the goal, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's different, for a lot of these group, bands, they really turn into businesses, and it's like, so if you're AC/DC, everyone likes Dirty Deeds.
Right.
Just write more stuff like Dirty Deeds, and you're going to automatically have another hit on your hands. And I think like a lot of those bands will still stretch their legs and do stuff that's super weird. I feel like Billy Joel is like one of the ones that like blows my mind, because there's always that random tune where you're like that's a Billy Joel song. Like the first one off of Piano Man is crazy with like that. Oh, I can't remember the name of the song now. There's like a fiddle solo and like Zanzibar. That's another like easy tune. Like, whoa, there's like a trumpet solo in the middle of that, and like so it's like try to figure out who you are as an artist, or especially like to bring it back around to guitar. Like if you hear an Eddie Van Halen solo, it's Eddie immediately, and he plays like that, and that's super cool. There's nothing wrong with writing to a formula, at least to a point.
Right.
So,
Right on.
Anyway, so yeah, so this is one of those runs that is more involved than anything that we've done so far. So those other ones are just kind of repeating sequences over and over again. This is a little more of a taste of what you can come up with if you spend some time to connect those different little scale fragment ideas, and then connect it with other techniques. So like this one has tapping, and then those kind of dissonant intervals to kind of wrap it up. So I know it's ugly, but it's supposed to be.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Right, it's organized chaos.
Yes, yeah.
That's the intention of it. That's very cool, man. I like how you're tying in the tapping and some of the earlier stuff in there too.
Thanks, man.
Jude said the Phil X bend.
I'm not sure who.
I don't know what that one.
I don't.
I don't know if Jude, you might be hipper than us at this point.
I have no doubt in my mind that Jude is hipper than me. I am not hip or cool in any way.
I disagree with that. Yeah.
Well, that's too kind. Yeah, so that's legato.
Cool. All right, you do the one of the AC/DC bends and bring your right hand behind and bend it higher.
Oh, yeah. I'm trying to think. There's also like the Joe Walsh bend too. That might be kind of like what you're. What is that? Oh man, I can't think of what it was. Nuts. Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about, but I
All right, you might have given us some homework to work on, Jude.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, it's that one right there. So this is like the Joe Walsh one. So it's like you bend one string, and then you grab the other one while you're bending. Maybe it's one of those that you're thinking of.
Oh, I see. So you like while you were bending up on the high E, you grabbed the B string.
Yeah. So it's like I'm bending the E, and then you grab the, and then you
do
pull
a return.
down on the
Wow.
other. Yeah.
Ooh.
I'm not doing a very good job of it, but.
Well, I think, I mean, I don't know if that's the same thing, but that's cool. That's like my favorite, like, bend guitar player is David Gilmour. I think, like, he bends like 1.5 steps sometimes, and you're just like, how do you even do that? And then, like, and stay very melodic. He can bend to exactly where he wants to go all the time. So he's always been one of my faves.
Yeah, for like just sheer phrasing and like pacing and like patience, I feel like David Gilmour is like the king of that. I mean, he's just incredible, and like just the way the guitar is produced up. I mean, his guitar sounds so good on every one. Whether it's like a kind of clean, overly compressed solo, like in the end of Another Brick in the Wall, or if it's like Time, or one of those soaring, really
super
driven. Yeah, just so cool. Yeah,
I know.
Crazy.
He's one of the few, like, one of those guitar players that, like, I remember, like, hearing not Another Brick in the Wall, Shine On You Crazy Diamond, like the first part of that, and just having like chills all over me, like whoa, dude, this guy is real. Like that whole song, just in general, I transcended. I remember, like, the first time I heard that song, I was probably in middle school, and was like, just, with a bunch of buddies, like, sitting in a room, and I was like, crazy, man. So, it was definitely different than, those days I was listening to Silverchair and the Lemonheads and stuff. So it was a little different. Not to take anything away from Silverchair and the Lemonheads, that Silverchair Frog Stomp album was hot fire.
Dude, the band from high school, when we were in high school, that I miss, man, is Sum 41. That band is freaking amazing. I missed it. I had my head so thoroughly up John Petrucci's butt that I just had no idea, It's so much fun, and so much good guitar playing on all that Sum 41 stuff, man.
Yeah.
it's different things, different.
Yeah.
Like if you go to a party and you put on "Shine On You Crazy Diamonds," like you're gonna get kicked out, like you.
Depends on the party. I run with some crowds.
Good point.
I run with some crowds that would be like, sweet dude. Especially if it's on vinyl. It's got to be on vinyl.
Yeah, dude, Out for Blood. Yeah, man.
Out for Blood by Sum 41 is one.
Dude, Jared, if you haven't, honestly, man, go listen. Sum 41 is super cool, man.
Yeah, I'm going to be plastering some walls. I'm going to plaster some walls later. I'll put some Sum 41 on and just like...
Dude, it's so much fun, man. Honestly, I missed it. I missed it, man. I missed it. We should have been in a pop punk band, dude. That would have been so much fun.
Dude, I could straighten this hair into some spikes, or some sort. That's dude. All right, I think that's good. If anybody has any questions, we will be posting these onto Facebook and YouTube, so you can check them out later in case there's anything you missed and you want to rewatch, especially some of those faster, like the later ones. You might want to just go back and rewatch. But it doesn't look like there's any questions. Thanks again, Rob.
Yeah, no problem. And if anybody starts working on it and they're feeling stuck or whatever, just talk to Jared and get in touch with me, and I can give you pointers, or we can help you out with it.
We're also going to be getting all of this stuff. I'm working on getting all this stuff into Teacher Zone, so it's all in one course, like a stunt guitar course. So you could just go into one spot and check it out. So if you have and everybody here, anybody that's in the call and everything has Teacher Zone accounts. So you're already set up there. Once we get it up, you just let us know and we can just assign it to you, so you have access to it. But all right. Well, Rob's going to be back pretty much every Friday at noon. We're back to consistency with these. Now that we've got everything, all the kinks kind of worked out, except for the Facebook Live kink. We'll get that though. We'll get there on that one. And we got some other exciting stuff coming up too, but we'll keep you in the loop with all of that. All right, dudes.
Everybody have a good day. Have a good weekend.
Happy stunting. I don't know. I'm trying to come up with sign-offs, See you guys.